All right, guys, I think we are live and good to go here. Tyson, Let's Talk Jets Radio. What's going on, man? Mandatory minicamp day one. Pretty crazy to say the least. I don't think there's another team out there with as many storylines this early on as as the Jets, which is crazy. But what's going on, dude? How are you feeling about everything?
I feel great, man. It's June 11th. It's summertime, sun, fun. Football's around the corner. I don't have any problems, man. I'm not angry like everybody else.
So the whole Reddick situation, the whole Rodgers situation, the Saleh presser. I mean, dude, there's so many things to get into here.
Well, we'll start with Aaron Rodgers, dude. We have to admit it's a surprise, right? We're a little bit shocked that mandatory minicamp. You assume the entire team's going to be there. He's going to be there, but at the same time, he was there for all of OTAs. He's been there for everything. So it's like, oh, you know what? If this is the way he wants to roll, they've literally put all their dreams in his basket. Like this is it. Like they come and go with him. So if this is what he wants, this is what he's going to get. He's not going to say, you know what? You can find me $500,000. I'm still going to, he's not going to listen to anybody anyway. So the Rodgers thing doesn't really bother me, dude. Like, I think it's just get him in the training camp healthy. He's a respected leader within the organization. The players love him. So the Rodgers thing, while it's unfortunate, he's probably the only quarterback in the NFL not at mandatory minicamp. This is what you get when you bring him in here, man. This is some of the things you saw at the Packers, if we're being honest.
Yeah. And Grant, what's up, man? Thanks so much for hopping in. And by the way, just for everybody listening, I think Tuesdays at 7 is going to be like the go-to time.
Yeah.
From here on out for these different live streams and whatnot. It seems to be a pretty good time for both of us. So, yeah, thanks so much for hopping out and or hopping in and hanging out. Grant says we're surprised because they didn't say anything, that they've known about this for weeks. Well, what was interesting, man, is supposedly, like you said, Saleh and the Jets, they've known about this, but they waited until today to say that. But here's the thing, right? You had Tyrod Taylor come out today and said that, he learned about being quarterback one in minicamp literally this morning.
Yeah, I mean,
so
the Jets don't know how to handle things, dude. There's so many things. There's so many different ways you can handle it. They try to act like everything is fine. Like Rodgers didn't blindside them with anything. Like they're prepared for all this. And then what the problem is, they don't communicate to the entire team. So when Saleh speaks, the players kind of contradict what he says. And if you read between the lines, a lot of things get contradicted. Honestly, with the Rodgers things, I genuinely don't care. Aaron does what he wants, and they have to deal with it. And the Jets have to, that's the aftermath of it. But I have a hard time, because, dude, they could have announced this yesterday. You know what? Tomorrow, Aaron Rodgers won't be, or Rodgers could have made a speech. You could so many different ways to go about this. I hate the way they handled it, but this is the Aaron Rodgers experience. Do you think any player right now is honestly bothered by it when they've seen how committed he was to come back last year after his injury? He's been their entire offseason. Do you think Brees and Garrett and these guys are pissed at him right now?
No. And, I'm not pissed at him. I don't think many people are pissed at Rodgers specifically. But, in the National Football League, when you do have something that's mandatory, just playing devil's advocate here, and to me, at least, you touched on it before, the other 31 quarterbacks in football are there. To me, there has to be a standard. So I'm happy that the Jets, not in some weird way, but I am happy that the Jets are stepping in, and Saleh did say that, that they will be fining him. Because if you don't, and you just allow your quarterback to skip a mandatory part of the offseason, and look, by the way, nobody's saying that Rodgers is going to get worse by missing these two practices, right? Nobody's concerned about that, but I think it's just the message that it sends. So, I think
the message is he's the boss. He's going to do what he wants, and you got to deal with it. This is the enigma that is Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying I like it, but right now we are so desperate for him to guide us to a Super Bowl. We're willing to tolerate things we wouldn't tolerate from anybody else, for being really honest, right? We're willing to tolerate a lot with Aaron Rodgers because we're desperate. We need him so badly to guide us and save us from Hackett and Saleh and whatever else is going on here to win a Super Bowl. If he can't do it, we're not sure he's going to do it the next 5 years with the Jets. So at this point, I'm like, you know what? It's part of the experience, and I don't like it. I've never been that, but it's just this is the Rodgers. It's the deal, man. It's not, you know what I mean? I just kind of expected it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. um, like at the end of the day, this is what Joe Douglas and co signed up for. And Adrian, what's up, man? Thanks so much for hopping in and sending in the super chat, bro. Really appreciate it. But yeah, like this is what the Jets signed up for, you know. So
I mean, if he missed,
I guess maybe going back to the go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, but if he missed the last month and a half and he wasn't around for OTAs at all, and he wasn't around anything, then you're like, you know what? This guy's mailing it in. He's not fully committed to the team. I think he's already displayed he's fully committed to the team. I think the locker room already respects that. So you get a little bit of a pass for that. You know, it's just the timing's weird. It's really, really strange where you have the entire offseason to have a special event you have to go to. It has to happen to be these 2 days on a Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. But it is what it is. Like I'm past that stage with him because I just want him happy, healthy, and whatever makes him fulfilled to get in the training camp, focused and ready, go for it.
Right. And also too, you know, there's no point on speculating what the event is. He's going. The Jets are, you know, supposedly fine with it, but they will fine him. I think that, you know, I was gonna say that before, but like that's to me an important factor in this whole thing. The Jets are actually finding Rodgers and Reddick too, different situation, but because they are doing that, to me, that really puts a blanket on a potential fire. You know, because I know some media members are going to be freaking out about this. You know, oh, here we go again. The Rodgers, you know, we saw it in Green Bay, like stuff like that. But if the Jets allowed Rodgers just to skip a mandatory part of the offseason and just didn't find him and just say, well, this is what he wants, and you know, that's it. But we are going to go out and find Reddick, and we would find anybody else that doesn't skip. Then I think we would have a major issues. Maybe not right now in the short term, but just optically speaking, potentially, you know, long-term leadership questions. I already have some leadership questions with this regime, but that would just add fuel to the fire. But, you know, not in some weird way. I am happy that the Jets are stepping in and setting at least some precedent in finding these players that are skipping mandatory minicamp.
Yeah, well, especially Rodgers. Like, you don't want to say like that's. I read the one guy kept texting me like 30 times or tweeting me. Like, dude, he should be excused. No, he shouldn't be. It's an inexcused absence. He's doing whatever he's doing. He's not here. You hold him accountable as best you can. You fine him and establish that precedent. If you're not here, you get fined. That's the way it should work. Like, in terms of that, I wouldn't cover his ass. Be like, listen, if you can't make it for whatever reason, okay, that's your decision. Like Saleh said, he made his decision. They make ours. You're not here. We fine you. We don't say, you know what? No problem, man. You know, have a nice time, whatever you're doing. We'll see when you get back. No, you pay the price. But for him, he's made hundreds of millions of dollars. Whatever the amount is, it's not going to really matter to him. But you got to at least show the locker room, listen, even though he is our leader, there is an aftermath to this.
Right. I think really what it comes down to, it's just like the cliche saying, you know, nobody's above the team.
Right.
No single player, no single coach is above the rest of the guys. But let's transition from Aaron Rodgers.
But there is one positive with this. Sorry, I'm all fired up tonight, man. I'm reading all these tweets today. I'm getting all crazy. The one positive is, for the first time in 15 years, the Jets have a legitimate backup quarterback where it's not like the offense isn't being run. Tyrod Taylor can still help these young players learn the offense, run the scheme. It's not like these are 2 days are a complete waste now that Rodgers isn't there. Like, if this was last year and you had Zach Wilson running the offense, you're like, oh man, like, are they even learning anything? Tyrod's competent enough to at least keep things flowing and going in the right direction while also learning the offense, which is a big thing as well. Like, it's not like he's been here 5 years. He's still figuring things out. So this could be quality reps from him as well. So I'm trying to find the positives, which is it's legitimate because Tyrod does need the reps. And there's not going to be a lot. There's going to be some fall off, but I think it's still good work for the team. It's not like these young guys aren't learning anything.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. You know, I did a video yesterday just talking about like the 5 top storylines, in my opinion, going into training camp. And unfortunately, we've already struck out on 3 of them. So to quickly just go through the list, health was in there, development of young players in there as well, right? Stiggers, Olu, you know, the young running backs, 1 to 2 year players. But the next 3, remember, the third was the Rodgers Hackett dynamic, how to, I mean, it's just more practices, more at bats, if you will, to get this offense going on the right track. You know, it's better to have 2 practices than having 0 practices. But you make a great point about Tyrod Taylor. The next one was the whole Haason Reddick situation. Well, I guess we'll save that for the end, but you know, limiting distractions was another one. You know, for me, it's just like, can we just get through this 2-day mini camp period with no storylines, fly under the radar, and not be like the talking point, you know? But we've we failed in that category. And then again, you know, hopefully with the my hope was going into minicamp, Reddick would be there. If he's not there, at least shows some sort of progression or solution, or you know, steps in the right direction, steps towards a solution. But it actually seems like we're going backwards in that area, you know, especially with the new report that just came out from Connor Hughes a couple of hours ago, which I'm interested to hear your take on.
Well, I mean, if we go back when the Jets first traded for Reddick, everybody was really excited. Great value, right? They're excited about that. And a great player. He's exactly what this team needs. A legitimate pass rusher, probably a little bit better than Huff at this point in his career. So everybody's excited. And the money at the time, we're like, you know what? $15 million, non-guaranteed. We don't care. But we all kind of assumed, if we're being honest, that a deal was going to get done because he has no guaranteed money, right? Like, you know, like if you're a player, and be honest, if you know you have no guaranteed money, are you going down a practice field? You don't want to risk injury in June or May or wherever else. You'd be like, you know what? I'm going with the training camp. Let me get there while I'm still negotiating. And I honestly have a very hard time believing that when Reddick talked to the Jets during this whole trade process, he said, you know what? I'll just come play for my current contract. I'm cool. No problems. We'll do it at the next year. What that story is the Jets telling Connor Hughes what their side of the story is. Now, let's hear the other side of the story. I don't buy it, dude. And I'm not being like a jerk to Connor Hughes. I'm like, you can only report what you're being told, right? And Samin's getting the same thing. So the Jets are sharing their side of the story. But do you honestly think Reddick was willing to come here and play with no guaranteed money whatsoever, a no extension, and bank on himself again, where he's coming off 3 great years, where he's primed to make, what, $20 million per plus? And what if he doesn't work out this year? He'll get 6 sacks or 5 sacks. He's not getting his $20 million per, you know, $20 million a year. So he needs to cash in now. So, like, I don't know, man. I don't buy, like, I understand the story, but I think there's more to this. I mean, can't you see Reddick's side? Like, do you understand why he's, like, you can understand why he's holding out, right?
1000%. I mean, you know, if you put yourself in the shoes of Haason Reddick, you're probably not, I would say 90% of everybody would do the same thing. 100%. You know, I think he's owed $15 million, but like you said, dude, 0 guaranteed for this season. The reason why he left Philly is not because he had an issue with the organization or didn't like how he was being treated, or, you know, he didn't get along with coaches. He didn't get along with players. You know, the Eagles were going into a rebuild. None of that stuff took place. It's literally, I want to get paid. I'm one of the best pass rushers in football. I'm not a top 12 paid pass rusher in football. We're seeing other guys, more maybe unproven guys. And again, this is speaking from Reddick's perspective, like Jonathan Grenard, Bryce Huff, you know, younger players that might not have produced for the amount or the length that Reddick has done. You know, the 4 straight years of double-digit sacks, 3 separate teams, 3 different types of defenses. That's really damn impressive. Carolina, Philly, and Arizona. So, you know, if you're Reddick and you're like, okay, you know, I really want a contract extension in Philadelphia, you're not willing to do that. Okay, that's one thing. But then to get traded to the Jets, and then for them to not, you know, show a lot of urgency or fire to give me a contract extension, it's like, you know, no, I'm definitely not going to be showing up for voluntary OTAs, and I'll probably end up skipping the 2-day, 3-day mandatory minicamp where I'm fined, you know, just a small portion of the grand scheme of things. My issue with it, though, is from, I have more of an issue from the Jet side of it than Reddick. I don't really blame Reddick at all, to be honest. I mean, as a fan, it's annoying, you know, you want guys to show up, but I mean, realistically speaking, I mean, you know, we would be asking a lot of him, in my opinion, to show up with no guaranteed money, no extension on the books. It's not like he's, you know, he used to be really, really good and then had like a couple down years and he's trying to fight his way back. No, he's a premier pass rusher. You know, so yeah, I'll let you go ahead, but I take issue more so from just the structure, the planning of this whole situation. I mean, I said this in a video I just did not too long ago, but typically, you know, if your favorite team trades for a player, you're super excited and there's a lot of just overall excitement and joy, like, oh snap, you know, like we're getting a win now player, win now piece, a guy who can impact the team immediately. It's not supposed to be this big headache to where the player and the team are butting heads. I'm not calling it an Antonio Brown Raiders situation, but it's far from just a seamless acquisition so far.
Yeah, there's so many levels to it as well. Because you figure you let Bryce Huff walk. This is supposed to be your Band-Aid to help, offset the Bryce Huff departure. And you saw the money Bryce Huff get. It's like there's a lot of different layers here. But when you make a trade like this, you assume that the organization has common sense that has a plan in place to satisfy his contract needs. Because you have to figure when they talk to him, they have permission from the Eagles to talk to him. He's okay. Give me a ballpark idea. What are you looking for a contract? What do you like? What is your parameters, right? And you had an idea. Okay, cool. I got it. Let's make the trade. We'll figure it out. And now this is all the posturing and doing that. But Reddick needs the Jets. The Jets need Reddick. And he's an important piece to the puzzle. What I don't like is that now it's like he's holding out. Screw him. We don't need him. Actually, we do.
I do not like that mindset at all.
I like now cut him, do that. No. He's a valuable piece to this defensive puzzle in a huge win now year where he's Jermaine Johnson's tag team partner, which gives you depth, gives you explosive ability, also takes some pressure off Will McDonald as well. It's like he's a valuable piece of this team. So I'm not discounting him, but you would assume there's more going on behind the scenes. So some of these reports I believe, some I don't believe, but you would think they have something in the works here, man. It'd be because can you imagine a world where say he has a good year, he has 10 or 12 sacks, right? And McDonald just does okay. Then he walks. Now, within 2 years, you let Huff walk and Reddick walk, and you need another pass rusher to be along Jermaine Johnson. So it's just not good business, right?
Yeah, and the team traded JFM too. So, all of a sudden you're down 3 pass rushers. Although JFM isn't really as highly regarded as a pass rusher as those other guys, but still a versatile, important part of the defense where we're getting a 2026 6th-round pick. So, it's a weird situation. I wish everything was I wish Reddick was there. And, if he hasn't signed an extension or if an extension wasn't put out on the table, that they were at least working in that direction. And it wasn't really such a big storyline or topic, I think I could speak for a lot of people when I say that, I'm not really feeling like a great plan of attack going into this year is to continue to hype up the team and talk about the Super Bowl and talk about winning the division and, look at us, we're great. I like just the low-key approach, and the Jets keep talking about like that's what they're going to do, and we've seen that through voluntary OTAs, but it's storylines like these where I just feel like they're just so unnecessary. Like, and the Bryce Huff thing is kind of just the weird cherry on top. Like if Bryce Huff signed with the Browns or Dolphins, it's like, all right, or the Eagles, opted to not sign another guy, or they maybe just drafted one in the first round. Like it's a little bit of a different story, but because the Eagles literally, just reading their, looking at their actions, they said, we are fine signing Bryce Huff to a multi-year deal, making him one of the higher paid defensive ends in football. We like the trajectory. We like the system fit. We like how we're going to use him. We're going to move off of Reddick. We're going to acquire a solid draft pick in 2026, 3 that jumps to a 2. And if you're the Jets and this doesn't work out, it just looks super, super strange, right? If Reddick continues to hold out, if a deal cannot be reached. And, I agree with Tony. I don't want the Jets to overpay Reddick, but I don't necessarily think he wants to be overpaid. I think he just is looking at the production and is saying, man, you know what? I haven't really had that mega deal. The biggest deal he signed was the 3-year contract. Yep. I think it was 3 years, 60 something, 3 years, 64, 3 years, 65, somewhere in that range, which by today's standards isn't like this crazy pass rushing contract. So I think, Reddick just wants to be paid like his he wants his contract to mirror his production.
Dude, the NFL is a results-driven business. You get results, you get paid. If you don't get results, you get cut. He's earned it. He's turning 30, dude. Like, he wants what he's earned, and rightfully so. And it's not like this is catching anybody by surprise, because in Philadelphia, this was the story. He wants a new contract. And the one thing about, I'm not going to be ultra critical of Joe Douglas. I hate the way he handled Huff. I don't like the John Franklin Myers move, but a lot of times is he really proactive with players, getting deals done early. When we talked about it last week with DJ Reed, with Michael Carter II, even Conklin, There's ways you can keep younger players on the rise. Now, Reddick's another guy. Now the whole rule is, well, Joe Douglas doesn't extend veterans that are turning 30 years old. Well, then why'd you trade for him then? Because now you're like, why do you want to grossly you're inheriting a problem on purpose, a distraction? Now, the one thing I'll say is this: it's June 11th, so we're reacting now. I think if this is now August 15th and this is still going on, I'm going to get pissed off because no matter how great of a shape he's in, then you worry about, is he in football shape? And a lot of times when guys hold out deep in the training camp, that's when the injuries pop up. He doesn't know the scheme yet. While he's a veteran player, he doesn't know Saleh's defense at all. He doesn't know the calls, the signals, the communication with his teammates. If you get into late August, then this is an enormous problem, dude, because now you're like, you've completely blown it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you just talked about how, we're talking about it now because it's happening now. I think a lot of the, I guess maybe frustration too, is that from a Jets fan's perspective, we're looking at the Jets losing our best, statistical speaking, pass rusher a year ago, Bryce Huff, who just so happened to be homegrown and undrafted. Yeah. So such a cool story. So we're losing that. And we're trading away a solid draft pick. A 3 that jumps to a 2 is not, it would be different if we just gave up a 6th or a 7th, or we got the JFM deal, or the Eagles got the JFM deal. Okay, then it's all right. He's being traded for a reason here. We hardly gave up anything, but no, we lost Huff. We just allowed him to walk. And we're losing this draft pick. And we don't really have the extension plan set up to where, I think just a lot of Jets fans want clarity on the situation. Okay, if we're going to let this guy leave, we're going to trade this top draft pick. Well, not top draft pick, but good draft pick. We're going to get Reddick in the building. What's the plan of attack? Like, internally speaking, you kind of just feel like they have numbers worked out. They know what they want to pay Reddick because, like you just alluded to, why the hell would you make the move if you have no idea what to pay him, or you don't want to give him an extension? Because that is the reason why he's being traded from Philly.
Yep. Yeah, you don't want to like inherit a distraction and a problem. Like you don't want to take that much risk on. I mean, you're taking a risk, like you hope he's going to be still a good player, but to have the risk of like, him saying, I'm not showing up till September 1st because you're not going to pay me. Like that's like, you just think that they're a little more competent than that. This is like the offseason, man. It's such a quiet time. There's not a lot of news. So it's like, all right, talk to me in August. This is a problem in August. Then things get interesting. And then you got to really question what the hell Joe Douglas is doing, because now you're going to have a problem on your hand. And then the whole Bryce Huff conversation comes back into the whole conversation again, because like you literally have him in the building and the money and everything else. So it's interesting. The reactions today are wild. I know it's other things to talk about, but what is your prediction right now on June 11th? Do you think Reddick gets a deal done? Something? Do they just give him, like, they guarantee like $10 million this year with incentives for 5? Like, do you think they get something done with him, or do you think it stays as is going into training camp?
Yeah, I do. Quick shout out to JAT. What's up, man? Thank you so much for the $2, bro. How many games we win this year? I'm going to say 11.
Me too. I'm with you.
Everybody stays healthy. I'm going to say 11, 12. And then K-Dude, thanks so much for hopping in, man. It's nice to see you sit aside the stream on my birthday. Happy birthday, bro. How old are you turning, by the way?
Yeah, happy birthday, man.
But Tyson, I think I would say it's a 2 or 3 year contract. I don't see. Yeah. I just can't see the Jets. Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I just don't see Joe Douglas, a guy who values draft picks, trading one away, letting your young pass rusher walk. He signs with the team that's replacing the player that you're acquiring, who's disgruntled in Philly because he wants a new deal, for you to turn around and not give him a new deal. In my opinion, if you don't want to extend Reddick, you don't make the trade. Yep. Or you just sign a veteran and just, hope for a cheap 1-year deal, which very well could have been the case, because if we think back, the Jets actually brought in Clowney first. That didn't work out. He signs in Carolina. Then they go out and they trade for Reddick. So, I don't know what to make of the situation, but I would assume that the Jets end up signing Reddick to a 2 or 3 year deal, probably front loaded. A lot of guaranteed money, in the early part of the contract. That's just my guess, though.
No, 100%, dude. Like I said, I'll think the same thing. It'll probably be like in reality, a 2-year deal, and the third year is all the funny money, the funny cap money to offset things. So to be honest, I'd be shocked if something's not done right before camp, and these stories are going to change. I assure you, within a day or two, that Reddick's side of the story is going to come out. It is, because there's no
Yeah.
way his agent's going to say, you know what? Yes, we didn't want any more money this year. We're happy with non-guaranteed money. There's no way that's true. It can't be, dude. Like we're smarter than that. We know, like, as a player, you wouldn't accept that coming off the year that he had.
Yeah, I mean, and another thing too is like in that Connor Hughes report, he talked about how supposedly there were conversations being taken place with Reddick and the Jets prior, like Reddick accepted or essentially said that yeah, he's going to participate in this section of the offseason training activities. And then all of a sudden something changed. So I don't know. I'm with you. I think at some point we're going to hear Reddick's side of the story, but macro perspective, just the back and forth to me is just unnecessary. In my opinion, and I hate to say this because I freaking love the Jets, but I just feel as though if the organization had a better plan of attack on how to handle the situation prior to trading for him, we wouldn't necessarily be in this position. I'm not, by no means am I saying overpay him, give him 27 million a year or something like ludicrous like that, but just again, maybe better foresight. And you touched on the whole Michael Carter situation, the DJ Reed situation, the Conklin situation. There's too many times where, you're just looking at these contracts saying like, these guys are people. I think if you approach players maybe a little earlier on in the process, guys that are legitimate, like solid players, these aren't just like 1-year wonders. It goes a long way in the locker room. It goes a long way with the morale of the team, not just like waiting around and just assuming that those players are going to just be dying to re-sign. Because if you think back to when Bryce Huff originally left, he didn't really sound all that enthused with wanting to come back. And I think a part of that is probably because the Jets didn't maybe make a push early on to bring him back, or if it was just radio silence and he's just like, yeah, I'm going to get paid. I'm dominating. If you guys don't want me, somebody else will.
Yep. And that's exactly what it is. And that's where it's weird. And that's like, look how many times, like, I think we talked about this when the Reddick trade first happened, where we kind of both assumed, all right, they made the trade, they'll get a deal done, we move on. Like, we kind of assumed it was like, because when you make the trade, you figure there's already parameters in place. Like, you already know what you have to do to keep them happy and move on. Like, we assumed it. And now it's like, all right, a little bit longer than we anticipated, but you have to think they're more competent than this. They have to be on a better page than this. So we can talk about other things, though. I'm sure everybody's like, oh my God, all Reddick all the time. But it's something to keep an eye on, because if the Jets blow this, the aftermath with the Huff and how they handle other things will also be scrutinized, because this impacts your cap space, impacts your future, and everything else.
Yeah, dude. So Mike said, what do we do with the return spot? So I'm assuming with the new kickoff rule. Also, what does that mean for Xavier Gipson? Do they see a bigger offensive role, or could it mean he's on the roster bubble? Personally, Mike, so I've heard good things about Xavier Gipson and what he's done in camp so far. He looks like a man on a mission. I haven't actually heard much about Malachi Corley. And when I think about the new kickoff rule and what skill sets are needed for those returners, the traits that pop into my mind are exactly what Xavier Gipson has, which is his ability to bring juice, right? Just electrify the opposing special team unit. He can make plays with the football in his hands. We saw the Jets bring in Tariq Cohen. We saw the Jets bring in Jakeem Grant. So I think it's going to be super, super exciting. I think Gipson 100% makes the team.
Yeah, I think Gibson has a huge role in this offense. Aaron Rodgers loves him. Explosive guy, can do a lot of different things. He's versatile too, which is important. The returner spot, I think you mentioned the guys. I think it comes down to Jakeem Grant, Tariq Cohen. I think Izzy's on the hot seat, dude. Izzy got hurt today too, which isn't good. But what's his role? Like, you have Brees and 2 rookie running backs. If he's not going to be a returner and he's not a true asset on special teams, what happens with Izzy? But I think he's going to be the odd man out, dude. It's just unfortunate, but heading that way.
So do you know how bad the injury is? I didn't see anything about it.
I didn't see anything after that. Maybe we'll hear more tomorrow. But just how they're, I think Gibson's primed to do a lot of good things, especially if Allen Lazard doesn't contribute, because who's going to be in the slot? I mean, you only have how many receivers you actually trust here. With Wilson, Mike Williams, hopefully he's ready by middle of training camp, I guess now is a report. Lazard, don't really trust him. Yeah, Brownlee, Gibson, Irv Charles, like Corley, but I think Gibson's probably a guy they're going to count on a lot.
Yeah, I think that number 3, number 4 is real. I think we're going to see a lot of Gibson both on special teams and on offense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think ultimately, you know, the reason why the team drafted Corley was for him to be the long-term slot guy. But look, I mean, it's a good problem to have if you got Corley and Gibson both playing really, really well.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, if Lazard's not picking it up, or you know he's having a bad another OTA session, or that this continues into training camp, maybe it would be smart if Hackett and these, you know, Rodgers and these guys want to maybe dial up some more formations with 2 slot receivers.
Yeah.
You know, as far as the offense, especially considering Mike Williams would still be banged up.
No, I agree, man. I completely agree. I think Gibson's got a role for sure. I mean, it's going to be interesting. A lot of other competition at other spots. Like, I think the other story that came out today was the emergence of Tippmann, which has got to be just great news for everybody. When you have a young center starting to blossom and take on that role and becoming more vocal, becoming more fluent in the offense, that's great news, dude. That's your anchor for this year and the future, man. So I'm encouraged by that. But I'm real curious to see who's going to back him up, though, is the one thing.
Yeah, see, I feel like that guy could still potentially be a free agent. I'm not 100% sold that we're completely done adding to the O-line, because I feel like Joe Douglas always has those like late summer signings that are just, they pop out of nowhere. Maybe this year was Tariq Cohen, maybe not, but you know, I think it would be pretty cool to maybe revisit this topic in 3 weeks. You can just kind of scan the free agent market and just see who's out there. You know, Bakhtiari still, I know he's tackle, but Bakhtiari, I believe Donovan Smith is still out there. Dude, still, man, I feel like every single week we're talking a little bit about the safety position, or the free agent safeties. They're still all out there. Well, I guess minus Marcus May, because he just signed
with the Dolphins, right?
With the Fins. Yeah, with the Fins. Speaking of that, there's actually so there's a lot of talk with Miami, Miami and the AFC East and the Jets and stuff like that. What's kind of your outlook right now on the AFC East, how these teams are coming together? I think Dolphins fans, Jets fans, I think everybody could agree New England's going to probably finish in 4th place. But how do you decipher the top 3?
Sure. Set me up for the kill here. I always respect the Buffalo Bills, man. I respect their coaching staff. I love their quarterback. I love what they've done. I think they've taken a step back, though. So I think the Jets should be right there. I think on paper, I love what the Jets have. It's just a matter of putting it all together and staying healthy. So if Aaron Rodgers is a top 8 quarterback, that's all he really needs to be. I think the Jets can win the AFC East. Now, the Dolphins are loaded on offense. They have all the talent in the world, but it's on Tua. You know, it seems like the Dolphins start off hot and their offense gets kind of figured out. Tua struggles, they kind of fall apart. Can they win in late December? Can they win on the road? Can they do all these things? I mean, I think the Jets are right there. I do. But I'm also in the belief where it's like, to be the champ, you got to beat the champ, and the Bills are the class until we show them otherwise, you know? But I think they're there, man. I think the Dolphins are maybe a little bit better. The Bills came down, the Jets got better, and the Patriots fell off.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a 3-team race for the AFC East. Again, New England is just too young, in my opinion, just not enough talent. But Thomas, Allen, Brees, it's a solid combination. I think we also got to throw Isaiah Davis in there too. You know, again, Tyson touched on it before. I don't know if you were in, but supposedly Izzy got hurt today. I don't know if he's gonna be missing time, or if it was. I would assume if it was super serious, there would have been a follow up, like if he had to be carted off or something crazy like that. But dude, I mean, Braylon Allen, Brees Hall, Isaiah Davis, I freaking love that trio. Young, a lot of gas in the tank, a lot of tread on the tires. 3 guys that kind of present different skill sets. Everything that we've heard so far from Braylon Allen has been awesome coming out of camp. Supposedly he looks fantastic catching the football as well. And Isaiah Davis is apparently a coach's favorite. So I think we're built to win right now, but in the event that somebody goes down, or we, want to ride a specific running back early on in the season and then, shift gears late into the year, for like a playoff push or those cold weather December games. I certainly think we have the power to do that at running back.
Yeah, I think the most encouraging part is them catching the ball at the backfield. That was kind of the thing you wonder coming out of college. How, are they consistent pass catchers? How do they look? Can they run the routes? Are they fluid? Because that's what Aaron Rodgers is going to rely on. You know what I mean? You don't want Brees to come out as a huge drop off where it's like, all right, these guys can't catch. They can't do this. If they're all versatile, it keeps your offense, flexible, and you can do a lot of different things. So that's the most encouraging sign, man. And then the last piece of the puzzle is their blitz pickup. How are they in blocking and pass protection? But you won't see that now because they're only in your t-shirt and shorts, but you're encouraging signs. And like the reports you're hearing are really, really like, wow, like they're really high on Davis as well, which is, dude, bring it on. The more the merrier, man. You can't have enough talent on offense because unfortunately injuries always happen in the NFL. We saw it. We saw it with Brees and everybody else. So next man up is still an explosive guy. Good for the Jets.
Yeah, dude, right on. I love how the Jets have a nice mix of like veterans and young players. But Dano, what's up, man? With everyone saying the ultimatum is playoffs for Saleh, I think for me, context matters. Does Saleh automatically get an extension, or is it extension or exit?
Extension
From you
for a playoff berth,
for a playoff berth,
or something have to happen. Like, do they make the playoffs and get blown out week one? First round. Does he come back? I mean,
I think you're spot on when you're talking about context. Too, I mean, look, let's just say hypothetical here, Rodgers were to go down again. We make the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor, or we win 10, 11 games with Tyrod. Then it's just like, hold on a second. If we were to get bounced in the first round, I still kind of like the direction of this franchise right now. But if we're a great regular season team and we get, the doors blown off in the playoffs, then you kind of want to rethink some things. It's not out of the ordinary to see a coach in the playoffs get fired. So, for me, I'm with you. I think context does matter. Mm-hmm. I would say right now, make the playoffs. That's step number one. I'm going to worry about how the game turns out when it is actually played. But for me, yeah, I'm it's playoff ultimatum for me.
Yeah, context most definitely matters because are they winning because of Saleh or in spite of him? And there's times where teams have won in spite of their coaching staff, and it's pretty obvious. So, the Jets, we've talked about it for 2 months now, how much talent they have on both sides of the ball. This team is ready to win, and they should win. Is Saleh helping that and fostering that environment where he's making them better? Time management, game management, roster management, doing all these good things, in-game adjustments, doing all that? Or they're doing a lot of really stupid things, and Aaron Rodgers is bailing them out? Did they make the playoffs by the skin of their teeth, kind of drag into it, and then get bounced out? Like, there's a lot of things that matters because there's too much talent now. Like, there's no more excuses, no more scapegoats. It's now you have to show us the best version of yourself. And Saleh's big excuse was, I have no quarterback. I don't have this. I don't have that. You have it all now. And you have a backup quarterback too. So now you got to show us what you're made of. And it's got to be a really high level of football for 15 to 17 games and a playoff appearance and a good performance there. Or, dude, I'm not guaranteeing he's coming back. You know what? I'd say, you did a good job, coach. I appreciate it. Mike Vrabel, come win us the Super Bowl. Like, Saleh, you got us somewhat close. Let's have a finish. Let's bring in a closer now. So he's got to show me a lot this year, man.
Yeah, and another thing, too, is just like, just because your starting quarterback goes down doesn't mean you can just throw your hands up. Cincinnati had that same excuse. Indianapolis had the same excuse. Cleveland had the same excuse. Minnesota. There's so many different excuses. Every team gets hurt. No team is 100% healthy rolling into the playoffs. But Tyson, I think we covered everything, man. Is there anything else that you want to
there's a couple other things too, but he's also got to teach his team how to win. Like, I mean, I'm sure Aaron Rodgers has to do it too, but this team has to prove they can win the big spot. Can Saleh in these close games go toe-to-toe with McDermott or Taylor or one of the Harbaughs or Andy Reid? How does he fare there? He hasn't really been in those spots. Like, beating Belichick in the snow game in December doesn't mean anything to me, or January, whatever it was. Like, he's got a lot to prove, man. Yeah. Like, people don't really talk about that too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the track record of a win or a loss in September last year, 2 years ago, compared to a heated playoff game is a lot different. Like, because we've seen the Jets and Saleh have some solid wins, over Philly and whatnot. We've beaten Buffalo.
Yep.
We've controlled Jalen Hurts and Mahomes and Justin Herbert, but I think it's one thing to do that in the early parts of the regular season, but can you do that late in the year in the playoffs, do or die?
Yeah, like that, like not to go back to like bad memories of the Jets, but like that Jaguar game on Thursday night still pisses me off. The game against Seattle, like when they
Yeah.
completely they fell apart. Like they had a chance to make the playoffs twice over the last 2 years and didn't come up for whatever reason. Like so, you're like, all right, quarterback, it's the quarterback, it's the quarterback. Those excuses are all gone now. But the other thing too is interesting is I'm real curious about the tight end position, which we're really not talking a lot about because we talk about Conklin all the time, right? But behind him is a lot of inexperience, man, where if Conklin does get banged up, it's got to be Ruckert, Yeboah, Zach Kuntz. Like, who's going to be the next man up there? And it's like, is the mandatory minicamp this time to keep assessing where they're at? And maybe then they say, you know what? We may need somebody now going to training because we don't have enough.
That's a good question. Yeah, I haven't really thought about it. Supposedly, Yeboah is like another one of these coaches, favorite, I don't want to call him a fringe player, but you know what I mean? Like a bubble type of practice squad, maybe makes the 53 type of player. I feel like I always see Kenny Yeboah updates and just there's never a bad thing ever said about him. And looking back at him at Ole Miss, like, dude, he was dynamic, he was fast, he had good hands.
Yeah.
I loved it when the Jets initially signed him, and we've had him now for a couple years. So, obviously he's doing something right to stick around as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, that's the one position where you're looking at the depth. Like the running back room, you kind of works. They're young, but they're showing a lot. Ruckert has the ability, but he still hasn't shown it yet. And this, it's been a couple years now. He's got to stay healthy. So you wonder how they handle that. Like I kind of figured the next couple of days they look at it, going to training camp. There's probably 2 or 3 position groups. You're like, we got to keep an eye on this too. And I think the other one is linebacker behind Mosley, where everybody's praising Jamie and Sherwood, which is great, but the linebacker depth kind of you're wondering like obviously you're not going to have 22 all pro players in your team, but you're looking at potential like little concerns. Linebackers kind of iffy too, I think, man.
I think a lot of those depth positions are going to come into play next draft. Think about like our next first round pick and next second round pick. Just I think next year's class is really going to do a good job of just filling the cracks of the roster, adding like the next man up or like the future franchise middle linebacker, to eventually replace CJ Mosley. I don't want to write off anybody in the tight end room as of right now. I could see safety or maybe cornerback 2 coming into play in that first round next year. So yeah, I think next year's draft class is going to be super, super important.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like everybody like talked about Olu, and he's not been like one article been about him the last like month and a half. It's just a first round pick that's just quiet. Like there's nothing like everybody admires Tyron Smith, like the leadership. He's a physical specimen. He's jacked. He's in great shape. But it's so funny to see Olu getting no pub at all. Just kind of just doing his own thing, learning, establishing himself. And I guess the last wing is your thoughts on AVT and Morgan Moses, man, and when these guys are gonna be ready to play. Is there any concerns like? Because right now it's like you want to have all 5 offensive linemen practicing together. We haven't had that in the last couple of years, unfortunately. I think Tyron kind of hinted towards that this year where they should all be able to do that in training camp. Do you have any concerns they all won't be ready at the same time?
It's tough. I mean, the thing that I think bodes well for them is that for the most part, they're all veterans. Outside of the AVT injury, they're either veterans that know what they're doing or they're young. With AVT, obviously he's young, but he's coming back from injury, so he's going to miss some time. But I think Vera Tucker has looked great every single year that he's been a Jet, outside of the time that he's missed because of injuries. So I think, obviously continuity, chemistry is so important with the O-line, protecting Rodgers, opening up these holes for young running backs. I have confidence. This is probably the number 1 season I can remember in a long, long time where I feel fantastic about the O-line. Is it like 10 out of 10 for me? No, I still think we need one more piece because like if Joe Tippmann goes down, it's like, I don't want to have like a week, the Achilles heel right in the middle of the O-line. So I think one more addition, preferably on the inside. And for me, there's literally nothing more that we can do, realistically speaking, than what Joe Douglas has been able to put together.
No, well said. I completely agree. That's where I'm at too. It's like the Connor McGovern thing's kind of interesting. I thought that'd be done already, but have that guy already. I kind of want that guy already in camp. Like I don't want to wait and have a panic move. Like have your insurance policy on the team already. McGovern already knows your offense. So you don't have to do that. But well said, man. I think I'm excited, man. The offensive line, you have a lot of confidence. Like to me, it's just like get through tomorrow's practice, stay healthy, stay out of trouble the entire offseason. Let's come back in late July and deal with it because they're ready. They're ready for a big run, man. There's all the pieces are there. Coach them up, figure it out, and let Rodgers lead the way.
100%, man. 100%. So, real quick question, then we can get out of here. But is tomorrow's practice the last one until training camp?
I believe it is, right? Because they said there's supposed to be 3 days. I think it's only 2 now. The third day, I think, is a fun day or whatever. I forgot what he said, but yeah, I think it's so just like you say, like, just get him through it, dude. Like, do walkthroughs. I don't care what it is. Like, when did Chuck Clark get hurt last year? Was it minicamp?
So it was obviously after he signed with the Jets. No, because I don't think he actually suited up for the Jets at all. I think I don't even know, to be honest with you. It was definitely before training camp.
Yeah,
it was not during training camp.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it was. I remember. I think I was like at Walmart or I was at the mall or something. I like looked at my phone. It's like Chuck Clark's out for the year. I'm like, we're not even in practice right now. Like, what? We're not even in training camp. Like, what is going on here? But no, it should be exciting. I cannot wait for training camp. It's going to be a blast. I love all the updates coming in all the time. But I think Tyson, I think that's going to do it for me.
Yeah, and thank you guys for all joining us too. We've been like doing this week, like every week, changing the day, changing the time. So we appreciate you guys like following us and sticking with us. And like I said, 7:00 on Tuesday works great for me, dude. So if that works for everybody, I hope it does. This is like it's a good time for both of us, and it's a good day of the week too for us.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks so much for everybody hanging out, watching. I appreciate it, and as always, go Jets.